Yeah,
At the
not his day.
first, oh my. Is there a mercy rule in baseball?
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Luckily, they're only playing 7 innings because of the doubleheader.
Yeah.
Welcome to 5280 Real Talk. I'm Gavin Foonberg.
I'm Alon Nagel.
I'm Avi Cohn.
For this week's episode, we have a guest, Zach Bai. He got over 12,000 followers on Twitter. He has his own radio show as well, so
Yeah.
let's get right into it.
For this episode's trivia question, we have who has had the longest MLB career? Your options are Nolan Ryan, Cal Ripken, Tommy John, or Tim Raines. So stay tuned at the end of the episode to see if you get it right.
All right, so we have 2 games of the week, one for the NBA and one for the MLB. Clippers, Lakers. Avi, who do you have on this one?
I'm taking the Clippers. I think that the Lakers, they just played well against the Nuggets, but I think the Clippers are still a hot team. And I think they lost some depth last year, losing Harrell, but I think they've come together and can beat the Lakers.
All right, Zach, what do you think about this matchup?
Well, I love the matchup. It's got a lot of star power, that's
Definitely.
for sure. In terms of both the names and the market, Los Angeles, second biggest city in America. My biggest question is, does LeBron play? It seems like it's been a question this whole year. But I'm going to go ahead and assume if he does play, that the Lakers will win, because I think there's a sense of desperation with the Lakers right now.
I agree.
They had just lost 3 consecutive games. They found a way to beat the Nuggets without LeBron. But they're in like do or die mode. Like, who would have thought the Lakers could potentially be in the play-in game? That's crazy. So I because of that desperation factor, I'll take the Lakers.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. They beat the Nuggets without LeBron, and they are, LeBron was talking about how the playing game is absolutely terrible
Yep.
and all of that, and I think that he's like, we need to win because we're not going to be in that, otherwise it looks bad for me. So
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But it's interesting. A year ago, LeBron was asked
Yeah,
about
he's
it.
advocating for it.
Yeah.
He said it was all good, but now the shoe's
so
on
now-
the other foot.
so now he cannot be in it. If he's in it, then he'll be like, oh,
Yeah.
good for this. But if he's not in it,
But I'll say this too, from the league standpoint, the league does not want to see the Lakers bounced in that play-in game.
Exactly.
The Lakers are a big moneymaker for the NBA, so
True.
it's a pretty interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I think the Clippers also have a sense of desperation because they don't want to play the Lakers. And I
And they
think
just dropped, to the floor.
They did just drop to set up a matchup between them and the Lakers in the first round. I think the Clippers know that if they bump the Lakers down to the play-in, I think they know they'll be safe from that.
Yeah.
So I think the Clippers are equally as desperate as the Lakers to win this game. And I think the Clippers are a team that's built to beat the Lakers, to be honest.
Because they're a good defensive team.
Yeah, I think that they're the Lakers' kryptonite, and I think the Clippers are going to take this one. All right, we got the Giants versus Padres. Gavin,
oh God.
who do you have this? Who do you have on this game?
All right, I got the Padres. They're 17-13, and the Giants are 17-11, and I think that they really want to take over that first place spot in their division.
Yeah, I actually disagree. I'm going to go with the Giants. They've surprised me so far this season. I thought the Padres and Dodgers were going to be far and away the top 2 teams in that division, but I think the Giants are kind of on a roll right now, and I think they can beat the Padres.
Zach, what do you think about this matchup?
I'm going to go with the Giants. I think the Padres have been. My expectations were a tick above this for both them and the Dodgers.
Yeah.
And San Francisco, I mean, for them to be right now like 8 games over 500, I did not see that coming. And I think that's what they are, right?
That's
They-
why. That's why.
6
Or,
games.
excuse me, 6 games over 500. I'm impressed with the Giants so far.
But to your point, that's why I think that the Padres are going to win this game because they were the team that was supposed to be better.
Yeah.
So, and I think this is where they're going to show that they're the better team.
Well, I think you could be right. Last year we had on our radio show Pedro Gomez, rest in peace, who left too early earlier this year. But he said you don't know like the water doesn't really find its level till about 40 games. Then you can kind of start to understand. We're still really early in the season, to your point. So you could see the Padres go on a run where they win 16 of 20 games.
It's like the Rockies. I mean, other than this year, the Rockies always start
really
you know,
hot.
they look like they're incredible, and then they're just terrible everywhere.
So I also have the Giants. The Giants, as we speak, are beating the Rockies 10-0 in the first inning.
Yeah, so I was listening to that on the way over. Herman Marquez apparently just couldn't hit the broadside of a barn.
That's
which,
so bad for the Rockies that he was pitching and they're still.
yeah, you're not
down
used to seeing that from Marquez. You know, he can go, but yeah,
At the
not his day.
first, oh my! Is there a mercy rule in baseball?
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Luckily, they're only playing 7 innings because of the doubleheader.
Yeah, the Giants are the most surprising team in baseball, in my opinion, thus far. Maybe the Orioles. They're
The Royals.
better.
Okay,
The
but don't get
Royals,
too
too.
hot on the Giants. They're playing the Rockies.
I agree. I'm not just saying because of this game. I'm saying in general, they've been much better than I expected them to be. Not that the Padres are bad. I still think the Padres are a great team, but I think the Giants want to prove themselves even further. So
Yeah.
I think they're going to win this game.
All right.
All right, now on to bold takes, Elon.
Well, this is kind of a mistimed bold take, seeing how things are going today, but I believe that the Rockies are not a bottom 5 team in the MLB, and I know what's currently going on in that game, but I have several reasons for this. They have had a tough schedule. In my opinion, that is the toughest division in baseball, with 4 teams that all have a winning record currently, and they don't have that bad of a run differential currently. And they've beat the bad teams they've played. Not bad teams, but
Yeah.
they beat both games against the Astros. They beat the Phillies 2 out of 3, and the Mets they won 1 out of 3. So
Yeah.
I don't think they're a good team by any stretch, but I think that they're better than teams like the Tigers, no doubt. The Orioles, who are still pretty good thus far, but the Pirates, the Rangers, and the Cubs.
I agree because, you know, they're losing 10-0 right now to the Giants, but it's a doubleheader. You know, Marquez is not playing his best. So
To say the least.
you can't base it off of one game. And like you said, they beat all the bad teams.
Yeah.
Or, not
Yeah.
all, but they beat some of the bad teams, which puts them ahead in the category of bad teams. So
Yeah, I agree. Because I would also say that the MLB is such a long season, and there's so much time to go for them to make a run. I'm not saying that they're gonna like make the wild card or anything, but I definitely think I don't think they're gonna be a bottom 5 team because you listed a bunch of teams that could be below them: the Pirates, the Rangers.
plus McMahon has been a standout this year.
McMahon
he
has been a
provides
standout.
great
And
hitting
Dom
for them.
Nunez has
Yeah, Dom
could be the
Nunez has
best
been.
rookie in the league this year.
And I'll say this too, to add to what you guys just said. Raimel Tapia is hitting like 320 right now.
Yeah,
He's
he is.
top 10 in the National League. So if you're looking for bright spots for a season that is probably not going to go so great, McMahon and Tapia would be on the top of my list.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. First time I saw Tapia play, I was at a sleepover at my friend's house, and he went up to bat like this, and then he hit a walk-off home run. So
Oh yeah,
I'm
yeah.
a big fan of him.
He's quirky like that. He's
He
got a little
is.
flair to him.
But yeah, I think with Dom Nunez, like you said, I mean, he's 3rd on the team in RBIs, which I think is huge for the Rockies.
Yeah, I think he's a future, I don't know, star, but he's definitely going to be a solid. He already is a solid player. We'll see what comes.
Yeah, but he
from
should
him in
have
the future.
a good career.
Right, for my bold take this week, I think that the Lakers will not make it out of the first round, regardless LeBron comes back or not. LeBron said it himself that he is at no point in his career is he going to be 100%, and you know, I don't think that I think Drummond definitely makes them better, but I think he gets in Anthony Davis's way. So
Who, Drummond?
yeah,
I think that this is a questionable take, definitely. I think it really depends on their matchup.
Yeah.
well,
If they play
that's
the
the thing though.
Clippers-
The West is so stacked,
I think they
and
play,
they're probably going to be a bottom
I think
5, bottom 6 team. So.
I think they will beat any team except for the Clippers.
I agree.
But it could also go downhill for them if they don't have LeBron playing for who knows how long. I don't know if he keeps re-injuring his ankle and he isn't able to start playing with the team until one game before the playoffs, and they're not able to flow well.
Yeah.
That
Plus,
might be an
even though
issue.
Anthony Davis is healthy right now, yesterday during the game he went over to the trainer and got his
Yeah, he did. His
Achilles
ankle.
looked at again. He's definitely not 100%.
I also
And he
think
just has to play right now, and I think that it's kind of like KD coming back early in the finals where he re-injured himself. I
Yeah.
think it's similar to Anthony Davis.
I also think it'll be interesting to see how they distribute minutes going forward with Drummond and Gasol, because I think, like you said, Drummond kind of gets in Davis's way, and Gasol brings spacing. In the Nuggets game the other night,
He hit like 4
hit
threes,
like
yeah.
3 or 4 threes, and I think that's valuable for this team because just having Anthony Davis, that's kind of his spot in the paint. Like, he can play outside, but I think if you have just Drummond and him there at all times, it clogs up the paint. LeBron might have a less easy time to drive, so.
I think the Lakers in general right now are like one rolled ankle away from being a second round exit. It feels like there's
Second
this.
round.
It feels like there's this. It feels like there's this super heavy important thing that's being held together by dental floss. From Anthony Davis's Achilles to LeBron's ankle. I think if you took either one of those guys out of a series, there's something with the Lakers that's off this year. Now I could just be being naive.
They're the favorites.
They
They're
are
not playing like it.
not at all, and they haven't really played like it all season long. So at what point do you see it over and over and over again? Do you start to believe it? Now I say maybe I'm being naive because
LeBron James.
it's LeBron, and maybe in the I've referred to the Lakers, especially when they play the Nuggets, with the phrase "dad strength," where even though you think the son has grown and to be strong enough, and there's this extra gear that dad has that he's just still stronger than you. It seems like the Lakers
Could go into that gear.
yeah, it seems like they could go into that gear, and that's not just with the Nuggets. Like, that's with everyone. It's LeBron James. Like, he's one of the greatest players of all time. But it's the health. It's the health with that group, and they're an aging group from LeBron to Gasol. We'll see what it looks like. But right now, the picture with the Lakers is unfocused and
It's
fuzzy.
also like it's not like he can just rest right now and be good for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because they have to avoid the playing game at all costs.
Right,
So
right. And by the
he's
way,
gonna have to come back early.
even when he does come back, sometimes you don't just snap your fingers and everything
Yes,
doesn't go back to normal. There's a reintegration period.
Especially
So
for Anthony Davis, he looked terrible in the first couple minutes he played yesterday.
Yeah.
He got it together at the end, but at first
At
he looked
first he
very
was not.
hesitant. It was bricking shots.
And I think another key for the Lakers in the Nuggets game too, like everyone was hitting shots, everyone was stepping up. Like Wesley Matthews hit a 3, and I think
well, he is like a 3-and-D player.
I know, but like Wesley Matthews is not getting a lot of minutes on this Lakers team.
True.
So my point is that the Lakers, it's going to be a key for other people to step up, like you said, because LeBron's could have like a reintegration period. So
We also have to remember that they're still the defending champs. They rolled through the playoffs last year with ease.
Yeah.
They only got taken to 6 games once, and that was in the finals. So while I definitely see a first-round exit,
they're experienced.
they're experienced and they're confident still, even though
But we're not saying they're a bad team, but we're saying like with injuries and where they're placed this year, it
Yeah.
change things.
All right, so on to my bold take. I think that Devontae Smith, the Eagles' first-round pick, he's going to be a viable option as a number 1 receiver for them. And I think it's not just because their number 1, I think right now, is like Jalen Reagor, and their
I think
receiving
he
core
is number 1
is
already.
very It's not just that their receiving core
But
is
he
very
says
weak.
viable.
Yeah.
I think that he's going to be good, and as number.
I see why you did this because everyone's saying that he's too skinny and stuff, and I kind of agree with them. I think he's like a John Ross. He's
I think he's more talented than John Ross.
against a huge cornerback or a strong number 1 corner.
Yeah, I agree.
He'll have good games against the bad teams, but against the mid to top level teams defensively, he's gonna struggle. His first year at least.
I think I can really see him being like a big play guy, kind of like Will Fuller, where he might not get
Valdez Scantling for the
Yeah,
Packers.
Valdez Scantling.
And is that a viable number 1
I don't
option?
think so. I don't think he will be a viable number 1 option. I think he's going to be a questionable receiver, at least his first couple of years in the league. But he might get it together eventually. I think he's really talented. There's a reason why he put up ridiculous stats in college.
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause
that's
he plays on
college.
the best team in college.
Yeah.
It's also college defenses are.
Well, I'll say this with Devontae Smith. First of all, you playing on the best team. If you're in that situation, all you can do is go out and eat, and that's what he did repeatedly. I mean, very rarely do we see a wide receiver win the Heisman Trophy the way that he did.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys heard this comparison before, but I'm going to bring it up because my partner Stokely was his teammate in Indianapolis. They won a Super Bowl together, and that's Marvin Harrison. Devontae Smith is like maybe 7 pounds difference from Marvin Harrison, who is a Hall of Famer. He looks different because of how slight his frame is.
Yeah.
But I will say this: I have an open mind for him to be a number one receiver in this league. I have an open mind for him to be a potential star in this league. I mean, his route running, his hands are the surest thing that I've seen in quite some time. So we'll see how it plays out, and ultimately, he's going to need good quarterback play, too. So you play that dependent position. We'll see what it looks like, but I'm a fan of Devontae Smith.
The thing about it though is he did have insane numbers at Alabama, but I'm pretty sure I saw this statistic where I think 8 wide receivers in the last 2 years or something were first round picks from Alabama or something like that. An insane number of their past 2-year wide receivers.
Yeah,
I mean,
2 seasons
Ruggs,
were first round.
Waddle, him,
Judy.
That's
Yeah.
4. But
Yeah.
that's a lot.
It's insane.
It's
He's
a lot.
playing. I mean, this year he was the number one on that
Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
But in years past, he was, he was the third option on when he was this good. So
I was also going to bring up their quarterback situation. I'm a guy that's not sold on Jalen Hurts yet. A lot of people were really impressed with him last year, but I felt like he wasn't great at throwing the ball.
that's not good.
He's
That
like
is not
I'm
good.
not I don't think he's accurate as he's a little worse. He's a worse version of Lamar Jackson in my eyes. I feel like I don't think that.
Well, I don't even think you can put Jalen Hurts on the same
Yeah.
planet
Yeah.
as Lamar. Lamar, not only was he an MVP, people forget, they talk so much about Lamar Jackson as a runner. In 2019,
He was
Lamar
throwing.
Jackson led the NFL in touchdown passes. Jalen Hurts, I think, a year ago threw 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I mean, it was a spark. He did give them a spark because it seemed like their offense was just so stuck in the mud. When he came in, it did provide a little bit of injection of life. But man, I want to
But
see
it's also
more.
everything
Yeah.
he did good was wow, incredible.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I'm still a firm believer that the Eagles should have stuck with Carson Wentz and tried to let him work a little more because I think he was still a little rusty, but he's shown
I mean,
that
he pretty
can-
much brought them to the Super Bowl.
He's-
Not quite.
yeah.
He
Yeah,
got
he
hurt,
did.
but
Yeah.
He's shown that he
led
can
that
be an
team.
MVP type player.
And he might have had the bottom 4 or 5 skill position players around him.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Because
he
Ertz was injured.
yeah, and they didn't have a
One-off.
number 1 receiver. I mean, in 2019, Carson Wentz became the first quarterback in NFL history to throw for 4,000 yards and not have a single 500-yard receiver. It's never happened before. So you're talking about making lemonade out of lemons. It would not shock me at all if this year in Indianapolis,
goes out and
Carson Wentz wins a ton of games. They have a really good roster, rock solid defense. They're well coached. So we'll see how that plays
Yeah.
out.
But yeah, I still think if you look at a guy, Antonio Brown, he was 5'10", 185. Yes, he kind of got out of the league, but I think that was for his personal reasons.
Yeah.
For him off the field, but he doesn't have the biggest frame, and I would say he was a bit overlooked coming out. But as we know, he was able to be a star for the Steelers.
And you bring him up because of his frame and how he doesn't
Yeah.
profile as
'Cause I think-
some big number 1 receiver.
I think there are other knocks on Devontae Smith, but I think that's the biggest one.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I tell you, look at a guy like Steve Smith, who's a Hall of Famer,
Yeah,
and
Steve Smith.
you wouldn't really recognize him if he was next to you in the food court at the mall. But if you're a baller, like I think Devontae Smith is, I think Devontae Smith's going to have a long career in the NFL.
Yeah.
all right, well that's gonna do it for our bold takes.
Can I get my bold take?
Oh, of course.
Oh, yeah.
I got a bold take.
I got a bold take.
I think Nikola Jokic, when the MVP votes are cast, it's going to be one of the largest wins in the history of the MVP award. I know that people have been going back and forth on ESPN and radio, TV, and bringing up Chris Paul, bringing up
But that's exactly why I agree with you.
Joel Embiid. I think that we need to keep in mind that these media people have a job to do.
Yeah.
They have segments to fill. They have to talk about this stuff. ESPN has a major $100 million contract with the NBA, so they're going to debate who it could be. But when the votes are cast, the people who actually vote are passionate and they have integrity with those votes, and there's no other option than Jokic. So he might not be unanimous. There's only been one unanimous MVP in league history. That was Steph Curry.
Yeah, Curry.
It could look something like 2014. Now, if you look at 2014, Kevin Durant won the MVP when he gave that famous speech to his mom, "You're the real MVP," right? But if you look at the votes, Kevin Durant got like 95 first place votes, and second place was LeBron with 6. I think it's going to look something like that. So put that in your
I
back
agree,
pocket.
because I also think second place for a lot of people is Joel Embiid.
Mm-hmm.
He's
been
missed
hurt.
so many games, and I think a big factor about that is looking at the Sixers' record. He's missed a lot of games, but the Sixers still are they first in the East right now.
which shows that he's not.
yeah, like the most valuable.
Also,
player.
the fact that, in the previous video I voted for Chris Paul, which I like him. But,
You
The
only
fact
put
that
him,
they're-
you only put him top 3. You didn't put him as the MVP.
yeah, I didn't put him as the MVP.
Yeah.
But the fact that Chris Paul has to be in that conversation as like a 36-year-old,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
he has, decent players around him, is actually insane.
Yep.
That just shows that they're just desperate to find other people to bring in to make the MVP race more interesting.
And I'll say this: how have the Sixers done without Ben Simmons? They
Yeah.
have really struggled.
Yeah.
You're looking at Jokic do what Jokic has done without Jamal Murray, without Will Barton, without Monte Morris,
Now Dozier.
and now Dozier. So
Yeah.
Jokic has taken that thing and put it on his back, and obviously MPJ's stepped up in a major way too. But I think it's the play without Murray makes it a slam dunk for me.
I just
There you go.
think that you can vote for Curry, but he's 10th, and I don't think
He's
that's
also
really,
only turned it on for like this
Yeah.
month and last
Yeah.
month.
So he's up there, but he's not top. You can vote for Chris Paul, but he's not even the best player on that team, even though he's extremely valuable. In my opinion, I think Devin Booker is still the better player. You can vote for Embiid, but he's been hurt. So I think that
LeBron is always in there, but he's hurt.
Yeah.
So
I think
Giannis.
that Jokic is just. You can vote for Giannis, but no one wants to give him
Yeah, I
3
agree.
in a row MVP. So I just think that Jokic is just the obvious choice. He just stands out from the rest of the others. There's no arguments against him. So
Yeah.
I agree. I think that he will be not unanimous, but
It's going to be close.
I
think
also
it's going to
think
be close.
something with MVPs is like they're doing something unique. Like for Westbrook, it was the triple doubles. For Harden, it was like I think he just had like 4 60-point games.
Joel
this
Embiid's
season.
just scoring.
Yeah, but for
And
Jokic,
rebound.
he's averaging
yeah.
8.5 assists on the season, which for a center, I think that's so unique to what he's doing. No one else in the league at his position is doing that, and I think it's just what's gonna set him apart.
Yeah, no, and take away the assists, and you don't want to take away the assists because
Yeah.
you mentioned Chris Paul. He's averaging as many assists as Chris Paul is. Jokic,
Yeah.
it's
And then-
very close.
And then you take away the assist from Jokic, and it's the same stat line as Embiid, just about.
Yeah,
Sure,
it's 26 and
sure.
10.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
almost 11,
He
actually.
is the leader in double doubles this year, and that's where I was going when I said take away assists. He's the leader in double doubles this year by a mile. No one's even close to Jokic. So
he has more doubles than a lot of players have played.
yeah.
So
Yep, and that's the and that's the case with. By the way, that's the case with Embiid. Jokic has more double doubles than Joel Embiid has game played.
Yeah.
And here's another real a harsh reality. Joel Embiid is a good defender. I'm not saying he's not. The Sixers actually played better defense statistically with the advanced stats when Embiid was out than when he was in. It's just something else to consider.
It's also
Dwight
just,
Howard.
I mean, Simmons is a defensive player of the year front runner right now.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
All right. Well, that will do it for our bold
Yes.
takes. So now let's talk about the Dodgers, who are really struggling, especially for the Dodgers. They've lost 3 series in a row, 9 out of their last 12. Are they going to bounce back? Or are they not as good as we thought?
I think they will bounce back. I definitely don't think they're as good as, to be honest, you guys thought. I was the one who was saying that they aren't going to be the best team of all time or whatever, best record. But, I definitely thought they were going to be the best team in the league, and I still think they will, but teams always go through these slumps
yeah.
at some point in the year, and I think this is when they're going through it.
I
So,
also think there's a huge amount of pressure on this team, like immense. I mean, they're basically like, if you were to pick a super team in the MLB, I've been saying this all along, it's them. And I think, like you just said, all teams go through slumps, periods where they're just not winning games for whatever reason. So,
I'll throw this in there to put the cherry on top. You always got to go out and do it. On paper it looks a certain way. Look at the New York Yankees.
But you gotta execute.
Do you want it?
I mean, look at how much money they spent, and it just doesn't always equal wins. That said, I think that water is going to find its level with the Dodgers. I think that you could see, like we were talking about the Padres, I think you could see the Dodgers, whether it's next week, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's a month from now, go on a stretch where they win like 19 of 21 games.
Yeah.
So, they win it all last year. There's maybe sometimes a little hangover from that, but I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the season that the Dodgers are kings of the West again by like 10 games. That wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the Dodgers, to be fair, they've lost to the Brewers and the Padres, two of those series, which are two of the best teams in the MLB. The other one was to the Reds, which was...
You got the Brewers series right.
I did get
Yeah,
the
you
Brewers
did.
series right. But I think they'll bounce back. Their team is too good for them to keep performing like this. I don't think.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think they'll be good. So now let's get your guys' thoughts on the NFL draft. We already talked about Devontae Smith, but what are the good picks? What are the bad picks? Steals?
I think that the Broncos it wasn't a bad decision, but it was a useless decision drafting a running back. Well, now it was useful, but it was useless
second
getting
round.
rid of Philip Lindsay if you're just going to draft a running back. I think if they wanted to interest Aaron Rodgers to come in, because everyone's talking about how the Broncos could land him, he's the perfect spot for them. Well, he would have been the perfect spot if they drafted the cornerback's fine, Patrick Surtain's fine.
Yeah.
Then they drafted a good wide receiver to interest Aaron Rodgers, and then at O-line the rest of the time.
Yeah.
Or a couple solid O-linemen.
I think that pick stood out to me with the running back, like you said. I think a good pick, though, I think this was kind of a formality in a lot of people's mock drafts, but the Falcons getting Kyle Pitts, I think that's really good for them.
Their offense is actually
Yeah, their
too
offense
good.
is insane right now. Go on and on with the weapons.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I'll say this with the Broncos draft. I didn't love it. And it doesn't mean that sometimes when you don't like a draft, it doesn't mean that you dislike the particular player, but it's about need, it's about fit.
Yeah.
And I think the Broncos, by not taking any offensive tackle for a second consecutive year, by the way, I believe they had 10 picks a year ago. Not one of them went to offensive tackle. Here they are again with 10 picks. They don't draft an offensive tackle. And then within an hour of me coming here and sitting down with you guys, you hear that the Broncos right tackle Juwan James tears his Achilles in an offseason workout. There's not a great plan.
Really?
So
That's just pushing Rodgers away. He's like, I don't want to get hit this much.
Yeah.
well, we'll see how that affects the decision. I believe that unless they trade Jordan Love and give Rodgers a new contract and a record-setting contract, I think he has played his last game as a Green Bay Packer. And you do, when you look at the Broncos offense, the tackle thing aside, you look at, do you have a franchise left tackle? Yes. Do you have your stalwart left guard, Dalton Reisner? Yes. You got Graham Glasgow, who they paid last offseason at right guard. They drafted the kid from LSU, Lloyd Cushenberry, at center.
Yeah.
You got Jerry Jeudy. You got Cortland Sutton. You got KJ Hamler for receivers.
Patrick
In
looked
addition to Tim Patrick, right? It's a really good room. You got a franchise tight end who you took in the first round 2 years ago, Noah Fant. You got the kid Albert Okwuegbunam that they drafted a year ago that played with Locke at Missouri and is a freak athlete. And then you have Melvin Gordon and now Javonte Williams in the backfield. The Broncos have a good roster, but it's almost like having a car that has the right tires. It's got the right interior, a perfect paint job. But if you don't have the engine of the quarterback, you play in a division with Pat Mahomes, man. So
About the NFL, about the draft, this is like kind of similar to the draft. It's about the draft, but I think the Packers messed up because they would have kept. Rodgers wouldn't want to leave, but I saw the stat where I think over the past
10 years.
10 years they drafted
One
offensive player.
One offensive player, and that was Jordan Love, his replacement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
It's ridiculous.
all that you're not helping Rodgers at all.
Yeah.
It's a slap in the face.
I also think for the Broncos, I think Pat Surtain, since he's a corner, it's an exciting pick. But I think we signed Ronald Darby. Our corners and Kyle Fuller, obviously, we have some good corners. A pick I would have liked to see, obviously, Penei Sewell was off the board to the Lions, but Rashawn Slater, who went to the Chargers at 13, I would have liked to see him come. It's not an exciting pick, but it's a pick we need, an offensive tackle.
Yeah. And
They also got that Division III
Yeah, his name's Quinn Miners.
He
Yeah.
bullied people at D3, but that's
Sure.
D3. So.
Yeah, but then they invited him to the Senior Bowl, and he got to play against some of the best competition. He was bullying those dudes too. So he's a name to watch. But the Rashawn Slater pick, if they had selected Rashawn Slater, today's news about the tackle tearing his Achilles, it's not a huge deal. But now, since you have no backup plan, it's a guy, Calvin Anderson, who I'm not saying anything, that he's a bad player, but that's not someone that you would want as your plan. And Rashawn Slater would be like a 10-year plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite pick of the draft personally was the Bears picking Justin Fields. I
Yeah.
think it's a really good fit for them. I'm a fan of Justin Fields. I do have a little bit of him concern, like his accuracy, but I think that he has pretty good weapons around him. David Montgomery broke out at the end of last season, and Allen Robinson.
A-Rob. I'm a big fan of
had a-
A-Rob. I think he's really good.
Allen
Yeah.
Robinson had a great season last year, so I think the Bears are pretty dangerous this year, especially if Aaron Rodgers leaves. I think, the Vikings are there too, but I think they're going to have that division if Aaron Rodgers leaves.
Well, I like the pick of Justin Fields too. And if you're a Broncos fan, a part of you is hoping that he doesn't become a star because you don't have a quarterback and you have the opportunity to draft him.
Yeah.
And not only did they not draft him, this is the third time in the last 4 years that the Broncos have had a top 10 pick and not drafted a quarterback. All while not having a quarterback. That's very unusual.
Passed on Mahomes.
So it passed on Josh Allen as well.
Yeah.
And so if you had Justin Fields,
The best.
if you had Justin Fields fall to you and you don't pick him, you
And
had
he
Mac
becomes
Jones
a star.
falls to you and you don't pick him, and either of those guys become a star in New England or Chicago, there's going to be a little egg on the face of Broncos GM George Payton.
Agreed. Well, that'll wrap it up for Future in Sports. Thank you for coming to the
Yeah, thank you,
talk
Zach.
show.
Thank you
Really
guys for
appreciate it.
having me, man. Best
Yeah.
of luck, and I'll be rooting for you guys.
Thanks.
We'll be back for power rankings.
Yeah.
Welcome back to 5280 Real Talk. On to this week's the power rankings right now. Elon?
Right now, my power rankings are the Suns, Sixers, and the Knicks in that order.
Okay. I have the Suns number one.
Yeah, I got the Suns. I think we can all agree the Suns are number one right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, they're not number one actually. They're number two, I'm pretty sure, but barely. And they're just hot right now. They've won, I think, 4 in a row,
Yeah.
and beating some good teams at that. So, yeah, I think they're not a lock for number one. I think you could put the Sixers there too. That's who I have at number 2. So
Okay, the Sixers, for sure a top 5 team in the league.
Yeah.
But if you look at the teams they've beaten in their 6 or 5 game winning streak, however long it is, it was like the Thunder, the Spurs, the Bulls,
Yeah.
and the Hawks twice. Hawks aren't bad, but
Yeah.
they're in the East.
And defensively.
Defensively,
they're
yeah. I just don't think they're that good. So, like the Sixers, I don't see them as a.
right.
Right now, they're not a top 2 team.
not.
let's
Yeah,
all
I
list,
had them at number 3.
let's all list our.
Okay. Yeah, I had the Sixers at 3, and then I had the Nuggets at 2, even though they just lost to the Lakers. Right
No.
now, they're hot.
Right now, they're missing 4 guards.
I understand that, but they've still been winning games.
They just lost to the Lakers, obviously, with no LeBron.
That's one game. In their last 10, they're 8
Yeah,
and 2.
and they just lost another guard in that game.
Yeah,
Okay, but
that is going forward, but right now they just.
You're telling
lost
me
to
the
Lakers.
Nuggets are a number
I know, but
2
that's
team?
one game.
They're a number 2 team without Barton, Murray, Morris, and Dozier.
on paper, absolutely not.
What even happened
But
to Morris? I don't even know.
I don't
Morris,
know.
I think. I'm not sure.
On paper, I agree with you. They're not, but by record, and not by record, but by what they've done in their last 10, and not anymore by win streak because they just lost to the Lakers. But by the last 10, then yes.
All right, we'll get back to it.
Okay.
But for my top 3, I got the Suns, like you guys, and then I have Milwaukee. They've lost. They barely lost to the Suns.
Rockets.
Barely.
To the
Okay,
Rockets.
yeah, Kevin. Okay, that was the one not bad loss. That was a bad loss. But whatever. KPJ had like 50 points. They beat the Sixers twice. Who's your top 2 team? Beat the Sixers
True.
twice, huh, Elon?
They beat the Nets.
They beat the Nets. You know,
They beat the Bulls.
they're
by
hot.
10.
They're completely slept on because they've been so talked about the past 3 years, 2 years, that now like it's not interesting for the media to be like, oh, Milwaukee's the top team, because that's just boring. So they aren't being talked about. But I think they are a top 2 team.
I think Milwaukee has been consistently good all year, but I don't know if right now
Yeah, right
they're
now.
hot. Like, I think, they won the last two, but then you have a loss, a win, a loss, and it's just not like a consistent streak put together of wins.
Well, there's no streak, but I still think that they are a team that you just don't want to play right now. They're hungry. I think
They also have Giannis Antetokounmpo
they
on
have
their
MVP
team.
on their team. All right, well, for my third spot, I have the Wizards. I had them last time. Yeah. Okay. How have my point not been proven? They've lost 2 games since last episode, and they've won 11 of their last 13, and they barely lost.
You're trashing me
in the
for
games
having
that
the
they lost.
Sixers because they haven't beat good competition. Look who the Wizards have beat.
Look who they've... Okay, yeah, and look how many times they beat the Warriors.
Ooh, the Warriors.
They beat the Jazz.
The Jazz is their one good win. I'll admit that, but the Kings, the Pelicans, the Pistons, the
Westbrook
Thunder,
is
the
also
Thunder,
playing out of his mind right now.
the Cavaliers, the Lakers without LeBron. They did have AD. The Cavaliers and the Pacers.
But, also their losses, when they lost to the Spurs, it was by 3, and they lost to the Mavs by 1.
Yeah, they've been
So,
super
yeah.
close.
But
It's not
they
their fault
lost.
they've played against bad teams. It's still hard to win that many games in a row.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree it
You're
is,
playing
but
against NBA players.
But that was that was your reasoning for why the Sixers
All right.
aren't there.
I'm making a
Sixers-
mid-segment switch. I'm
You
taking
can't
out the...
do that.
Who says I can't do that?
Fine.
I'm reordering my power rankings. I'm putting the Sixers at 2, taking the Nuggets out, and I'm putting the Wizards, but for different reasons than you. Not because of their wins, but Westbrook literally is playing the best basketball of his life
That's
right now.
that was one of my points, Avi.
Okay, it wasn't your main point. Your main point was with the Wizards. But whatever. I think that the Wizards, Westbrook...
He's playing MVP basketball.
Relax about MVP basketball.
He's not gonna win MVP, but he's playing MVP
Yeah, at
basketball.
the moment, he's playing MVP basketball.
They're just not a top 3 team.
Right now, they totally are.
No, they're not.
What will
When
it
they
take
be-
for you to
when-
see that?
Them beating a competent team.
They are. They beat the Warriors
The Warriors
twice.
Okay, so the best team they've beaten other than the Jazz. Again,
The Warriors-
Jazz, I admit, was a good win.
The Warriors could be on this list, to be honest.
Also, I know that the
They
Lakers.
could be.
I know the Lakers are not
Relax.
insane right now. The Lakers are not insane by any means, but they're still a competent team. The Wizards just
Okay, I'm just saying they just haven't had any impressive wins, which is not their fault that they haven't played, but I don't think it's good enough to put them. There's 30 teams. There's so many good teams in
I
the
think
league.
that another thing that puts them at a top 3 team is the fact that they are so hungry right now. They
There are
are.
many teams that are very hungry right now. I would even put the Mavericks ahead of them.
Oh my god.
The
kidding.
team that beat them.
Great.
One.
Now,
A win's a win, Avi.
I understand
exactly. A win's a win, and they've won 11 of their last 13.
that. Facts.
That's impressive. Look who the Nuggets have beaten, and look who they've lost to. Go.
Okay. I don't have the Nuggets there either.
Yeah, but Avi did.
He
And
did.
but when they were on their win streak, and the only good team they beat, a couple weeks ago, and the only good team they beat was
Clippers.
the Clippers. You guys were still high on them. A win is a win.
Beat the Clipper. Yeah, I agree. They haven't. I don't have them here. I don't know why you're trying to bring up the Nuggets. I never said the Nuggets are up there.
No, I know, but a couple weeks when they were on their win streak, you said that they were up there.
Which win streak? This one, the one where they beat the Clippers, the Sixers, and
The
the
Spurs,
Hawks.
the Pistons, the Hawks were bad then. They've been playing better recently.
The Hawks were not bad.
They weren't great. They're
This is a more.
they're like the 6th seed in
Yeah.
the East or 5th seed in the East.
Yeah, they're not great, but they're
Also,
not
I
bad.
feel like I honestly feel like the Hawks should be better than they are. Just on paper, their roster, they have Capella, Collins, and Trae Young. That's 3 pretty good players. They cannot put it together on defense. They just, for some reason,
At the end of the day, at the at the end of
I
the
think
day,
that's our calling for just to end the episode.
I agree with that.
Honestly, though, Avi, give us the trivia answer.
Okay, yeah. The trivia question was, who has had the longest MLB career? Your options were Nolan Ryan, Cal Ripken, Tommy John, and Tim Raines.
Hey, at least the doorbell was sports related.
And the answer was Nolan Ryan. Do charge with 27 seasons. You got it right. Congrats.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode, or today's episode of 5280 Real Talk. We're gonna look into bringing in many more
Guests.
guests, and hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching.